Illinois Stories is brought to you by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting and by the support of viewers like you. Thank you.
Hello, welcome to Illinois Stories. I'm Mark McDonald in Lincoln at the mill on 66. This storied old building really has a very interesting history, and when we first started talking about this building about 12 years ago, we came to do an Illinois Story. It was a ramshackle, fallen down kind of a mess of an old restaurant that had been abandoned for some time. And local folks got the idea, said, look, Route 66 is where it's at, and this was an integral part of Route 66, and we need to save this building and make a museum out of it. And doggone it, if they didn't do it within the last 12 years, it opened just earlier this spring. And Jeff Ladd, in your many reincarnations of jobs in Lincoln and Logan County and around central Illinois, you've seen this thing happen from the first idea, when it was just kind of a glint of an idea, into what it is now, which is a very stable building and a very interesting museum. And congratulations to you and your group.
Well, thank you, and it's so great having you back, because you literally were here when we couldn't even walk inside, and you were sticking your camera through the broken windows to get shots.
We didn't think you'd ever make it.
Yeah.
Because it was falling down, and the basement, it was falling into the basement. It was just it was a wreck.
It really was. And so it took us, as you said, close to 12 years, $100,000, which may seem like a lot of money, but probably $250,000 if you were doing it through other means other than the volunteer labor.
Got a lot done for $100,000.
Yeah.
Yep.
And we utilized 2 National Park Service grants and funds from the city of Lincoln, and a lot of great local donors, including the fellow that brought the big covered wagon to town.
Yeah.
And we just kept working year after year, getting a little done here and there. And during that time span, I was Logan County Tourism Director, and I went through other jobs, and I ended up with the Illinois Route 66 Scenic Byway. But we kept this as a separate nonprofit foundation the whole time, and that was the key that allowed that organization to keep churning out the revenue to get this project done. And as you said, it culminated April 29th with our big grand opening, Route 66 Day in Lincoln. And Governor Rauner was here for that event, and a representative from Congressman LaHood's office was here, and Representative Tim Butler was here, as well as local officials. So we were so excited to have that great day.
It looks like it used to. A lot of our viewers are old enough to remember coming here to Lincoln just to have a schnitzel at the mill.
Yes.
I mean, a lot of them. And it looks very much now as it did then, doesn't it?
It sure does. And even your cameraman used to eat schnitzels here, so we know. Now, I will say that a lot of the people that ate meals here, when they come inside, it's a little bit different feel, because it doesn't look like a restaurant anymore. It's a museum now. But they still, the general sense of it, it's a feel-good thing for them. And it's really interesting. There's 2 types of visitors that we're getting initially early on. And one is a large group of people that used to come here and eat and drink and see the live bands that performed here. And then, of course, the other is the international Route 66 travelers.
Yep.
Starting way back with your show, I promoted this internationally as the top Route 66 restoration project to see along the road. So that allowed it to get in all the literature and the books and the travel guides, and so over all those years, people would stop even when we were working on it, and they would know this was going on. So now it's done, and people can come and enjoy our incredible museum collection. I can't wait to show you some of the really rare items pertaining to Lincoln and Logan County Route 66 history.
Let's get to it.
Okay.
Come on. Well, Jeff, unfortunately, it doesn't smell like schnitzel in here. I'll bet it always did when it was open as a restaurant.
Well, that's what they say.
Yeah.
And the schnitzel was such a trademark of the restaurant. And I never had the honor of eating here.
Mm-hmm.
By the time I got the place, it had been abandoned for 10 years. And Ernie Edwards from the Pig Hip called me up and said, "You've got to go down here and save this place." And after that, he kind of just went to the side, and I did all the heavy lifting.
We'll hear more about Ernie
Yeah.
as this program goes on,
Absolutely.
because he was a stop on Route 66.
He was.
And his collection is now a part of this museum, but we'll hear more about him. But first, you were able to save some of the things from the original
Some.
restaurant. It had been abandoned for some time. These chandeliers, this is the way the lighting worked, and it's really kind of unique with the wagon wheel.
Yes.
And what's really a treasure is the booth, because it's the only one left, and this was the booth seating, wasn't it?
It is. It was the only one we were able to save, and it's even still in a little bit of bad shape, but it has such a great historical cachet to it. You'll see the photo of an actual schnitzel sandwich behind it. And yeah, your wagon wheels that you mentioned, they were restored by the local Salt Creek Abate chapter.
Well, that's nice.
They've
Yeah.
been a great volunteer partner to us. And then, of course, the leg hanging from the ceiling, too.
Oh.
It was another fixture.
Yeah.
And
that
so
moves too, doesn't it? There's
does
a little
move,
motor on
yes,
there. The leg.
Yep, and I know that you've got some good close-up footage of that. So, but yeah, so we were so excited to be able to save some of this, but we also found a lot of great archival material that's over in this mill display case
Take us
over
over.
here.
Take us over. It was probably kind of fun and kind of awful to have to go through all this stuff, covered with dust and years of grime.
Yeah, and a lot of it goes way, way back. I'll start with one of the earliest pieces in the collection. These are the actual Dutch shoes that a young boy wore on the opening day, July 25th, 1929. He and his sister were the kids of the original manager, and they all dressed up in Dutch outfits, and they stood out front and gave roses away to all the customers
Really?
for opening day.
Really?
So we have a very little history of the mill pre-World War II. Most of it is old newspaper archives. But the mill really kind of kicked in after the early days. And I'll show you how the front window transformed from a sandwich stand to eventually becoming part of a restaurant. But most of these other items in our collection here are early menus and placemats. And we even found upstairs this purse, which was owned by the matriarch of the mill, Blossom Huffman. She and her husband Albert bought it after World War II. And it had all her IDs in it, Social Security card, driver's license. It was really incredible. And kind of goes to the theory that when they closed around 1996, they did so in a hurry. So we don't know exactly what the circumstances were. But I liken finding her purse to finding Abraham Lincoln's wallet. That's how significant it is for us. So.
Spoken like a true mill lover.
Yes.
Some of the menus were in Braille. There's one on top there that's in Braille.
Yes, the Braille menu is a byproduct of the folks that came over here from Lincoln Developmental Center next door. We had huge crowds coming over here. And when LDC closed, circa mid-90s, that marked the demise of the mill closing as well.
These are interesting too. These photos show, you and I were talking outside, what a condition the building was in before you took it over.
Yeah.
And you can see here that it's the siding is literally coming off. The windows are all gone. It just looks like it would have been fit to tear down. And fortunately, that didn't happen.
Yes, absolutely.
The menu. Okay, here's the menu. Since 1945, I love this menu, and it includes that we've been talking about, the schnitzel, and you can see the size of it. You can see why people stood in line for it, because it's twice as big as the bun, maybe three times as big as the bun, and it's sold for $2.75. This is really interesting because you can see the prices in here. But here's the schnitzel for $2.75, and if you couldn't get full for $2.75, I guess there's something wrong with you.
Right.
Because that was really, it's interesting. And this menu, a lot of the stuff is in very good condition.
It is. We have a lot of our menus and placemats are in great shape. Some, like the Braille menu, have some wear to it, but it's just so rare.
And this, what the heck is this? This looks like it's very heavy, I know that.
Well, we found this in the rubble, so we know it's an original mill artifact. Bruce Huskins found it. He was on our board, and he was the one that did the Route 66 garage sale. And so this dates back to before beer cans had pop tops on them. They didn't have any opening on them at all, so you put your beer can in here, and you use this to pop it open, and this allowed you to pop open a lot in rapid succession.
Yeah, and you had to do both sides, remember, to let the air in so you could glug it out.
Absolutely.
Okay. And now, what? This looks like a very nice little piece, but what's it doing in the mill?
Well, and this was originally in the restroom. And so when you went to the restroom, if you were a little too curious and you opened the lid, you got a surprise. Would you like to try
I don't know. Is there something going to jump out at me or what? So everybody in the building hears that, right?
Everyone knew that
and
you
they all
went to
look
the
for
restroom.
who's going to come out of the restroom.
Absolutely.
With a red face.
With a red face. And hopefully not worse.
Right. The Huffman, right. The Huffmans had a sense of humor, didn't they?
They did. It goes back to the leg in the ceiling and all kinds of fun stuff. That
Okay. We mentioned Ernie, right?
Ernie Edwards.
We got to see Ernie's collection over here because it's really, a lot of people traveled Route 66 to go to the Pig Hip restaurant in Broadwell.
Yes.
Right. Well, before we go past it though, this is a curiosity.
This really is, and we're trying to interpret not only the famous dining in Lincoln and Logan County on 66, but this is the Illico mascot. Illico was a chain of gas stations and later convenience stores in central Illinois, and it was headquartered in Lincoln. And Dave Goldwitzer, who was the owner, made a donation to the mill, and when he showed us his warehouse, lo and behold, this fabulous Lost in Space type robot was there. We've nicknamed him Illy, and he's our most popular selfie. And so he helps us interpret the gasoline portion of traveling Route 66. And that includes, that is an actual stoplight. That's how big those are. I mean, they look small when you're driving. And this little cylindrical chunk of concrete there, that is an actual chunk of Illinois Route 66 from down by Gillespie, Illinois. It's called a core.
And this light actually came from some stoplight off of Route 66.
Yes.
So, neat.
Yeah, absolutely.
Neat.
So that's our interpretation of the gasoline industry.
Here's a drawing of the Pig Hip, a mural of the Pig Hip restaurant in Broadwell. And like I say, Ernie not only had an ongoing restaurant there, but he had a great collection, didn't he?
He sure did. And after the restaurant closed, he was a National Park Service recipient of a grant that converted it into a museum. And unfortunately, in 2007, the museum burned down. And so Ernie worked with me to help save the mill. When I first became tourism director, he came to my office and he said, "You got to save that mill. It's the only original Route 66 icon in Lincoln, and by golly, you need to save it." And you know, almost 12 years later, we got it done. Unfortunately, Ernie and his wife passed away.
There's a picture of Ernie right there in the corner.
Yeah. So.
And that was in, let's see,
2000.
We got a screwdriver covering up the date, but it's 2014,
I believe.
it looks like. Yeah.
So.
Well, good for Ernie. He got a chance to.
2012, actually. And his brother Joe was also had a gas station along Route 66, so the family had a great connection. And Ernie was also really good friends with Bob Waldmeyer, the famous hippie artist on Route 66. And this piece of red wood here is from the original outdoor siding on the Pig Hip restaurant. It's got a Pig Hip postcard that Bob Waldmeyer designed.
Neat.
And it's signed on the left by the old coot, Ernie Edwards, and signed on the right by Bob Waldmeyer. So that's a real rare piece for us.
And we'll see later in the program too, Bob Waldmeyer also has some other artwork in here, one-of-a-kind artwork, and you can show us, because it's very interesting what you have to remember the old building as it looked before.
Absolutely.
Okay, so here's Ernie's sign, the Pig Hip restaurant. That was hanging outside, I assume, or was it inside? It looks like it was outside sign.
It was an outdoor sign. It was one of the early reflective signs, so at night it had a reflective paint material on it. It would show up, and that was like an IDOT requirement back then. So that's a super rare sign. And our Pig Hip collection's so expansive, it kind of bleeds over into our tropics collection.
Okay, but before we do that, you told me that you were going to show us how the original part of the building, which was a sandwich shop originally, right? How they served.
Yeah, so from 1929 to around 39, it was just this front part of the building. And back then, this whole section of original 66 out front here was lined with gas stations and restaurants and things like that. And you didn't have like a Casey's that had gas and food. Everything was separated out. You bought your gas at a gas station, you bought your food at an eating establishment. And so before there were windows here, these were open areas, and there was large flaps on the front of the building, and they folded up, and they served sandwiches out from the front of the building.
Was it called the Mill at that time?
It was called the Blue Mill.
The Blue Mill.
The Blue Mill originally, and it was white with blue trim, so it had a whole different color style, and all the waitresses dressed all the time in Dutch outfits. So after World War II, it lost some of that Dutch cachet where they didn't dress up that way anymore. But in the early days, it very much modeled the Dutch famous Monet windmill theme. And Ernie had, he and his brother Joe, they had other establishments along the way, an old city service station that his brother ran in the 40s. Ernie had a restaurant here in Lincoln called the Tizit. And so these are some of the other ventures that the Edwards family were known for. Both Ernie and his brother Joe are in the Route 66 Hall of Fame. And the Mill is in the Route 66 Hall of Fame as well, and the Tropics is too. Okay.
Now, come with me this way, because I want to show, we're in the oldest part of the establishment now. Built in 1928 or 9?
29,
okay. But, so this is all added on in the 40s when it becomes the Mill and the Huffmans take it over. This is all added on.
Yes, beyond this doorway is the post-World War II era, and it's an old Army barracks from Camp Ellis, which is over
near Ipava.
Ipava, Havana, Ipava area. They took 3 of those old barracks and they moved them to Lincoln. Interestingly, and this was all right after World War II, they all had to come across the Illinois River. We don't know how they did that. One of the barracks ended up here. One of them ended up at our airport, and it's a museum.
It's a museum too.
Yes, Heritage in Flight. And the other one ended up on the campus of Lincoln College. And that's the one that's no longer with us. So,
well, thank you very much. Don, when you got out of the service, when the war was over, you came back, of course, and take me back to what the Mill was like when you were a young man and just back from the war.
Well, on the weekends, which was back then, that was the time that you celebrated outings, you know. This place would be loaded on Friday and Saturday nights. And there'd be people dancing, talking, the bar stools would all be full. Oh, it was quite a place. back then.
It was the place in Lincoln, I guess?
It was the place in Lincoln at that time.
Yeah. It became kind of famous for its food. People would travel a long way to come for the food. What did you like the best?
Well, the schnitzel. See, I have a nephew that's in Florida right now. When he came back here, that was a must. He had to take a schnitzel.
Had to have a schnitzel, huh?
He had to have a schnitzel, and he took a schnitzel with him.
You know, leftover schnitzel's not all that good.
No, I know they aren't, but they was to him.
He had to take it back to Florida with him.
That's right.
Wow, that's a long trip to have a schnitzel waiting for you on the other end. It's a long trip.
Yeah, he still lives in Florida.
Mm-hmm. Now, you were a friend of the family that owned the mill,
yes.
right?
Oh, yes.
Yeah. And you were a buddy of one of the sons, I guess, huh?
Yes, Bob.
Yeah. So, did you ever work here?
Oh, yes. I worked here.
Yeah. Did you ever get paid for working
I never
here?
got paid
You
here,
never-
but the way I got paid was we went out afterwards.
Yeah.
After we closed here, we went to Peoria.
But you would close up here, huh?
Oh, yes.
So late at night, you would close.
Oh, yes, you definitely.
Well, why did you go to Peoria?
Went there because they had places that was open that we liked to see.
Well, you were young, you wanted to stay up all night.
Oh,
huh?
yeah. Oh, yeah. That was the thing on weekends.
Yeah. But if you were in Lincoln and you wanted to have a good meal and a place to drink and dance,
Be right here.
it'd be right here.
Right here.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, well, Jimmy, there'd be people standing outside talking. You know, men, how men are. But there'd be men outside talking.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it was quite a deal here.
Yeah. Well, it's back again.
Oh, yeah.
Does it bring back memories when you come in here?
Well, it brings back memories, yeah, but nothing like it was. I mean, like that foot hanging through the wall, that's neat to what it was, because it didn't look that neat before.
Well, thank you, sir.
You're quite
Good
welcome.
talking to you.
Nice talking to you, buddy.
Jeff, another iconic stop on Route 66, the Tropics. A lot of people will remember the sign anyway.
Yes, and we're very happy the sign's going to be coming back to Lincoln in 2018, fully restored. To supplement that, they can come to the mill. We have an extremely rare collection of Tropics items, going back to Coonhound Johnny, who was Al Capone's runner in the day.
A song named after him?
A song named after him. He and his wife, Minnie, deeded over the Tropics restaurant to their son, Vince. And Vince opened it back in 1955. And these are terrific original documents from the opening of the building. And we have a number of examples of different menus and things like that. Yeah. Vince even played in a band, and his little hi-hat cymbal is on the bottom shelf there. So another great way when they're here in town to see more and learn more about the Tropics.
Yeah. Chris Wibben, in the gift store, there's an interesting feature at the back of the gift shop. There's a car hood that says Illinois 66 on it, and what they here at the mill ask people to do when they come in is to sign the car hood. And if you look around, it's remarkable. All these little magic markers and all these colored pens. Everybody's got their signature on here in their own choice of color, and you can tell if you look down here in the corner. My goodness, you have people coming from all over the world. These folks signed from China. So this is a real attraction, this meaning the mill for Lincoln and Logan County, isn't it?
Yes. We've seen people come through from France. I have people from Norway, Sweden, the foreign European countries love to travel the Route 66.
Isn't that odd, though? Because I grew up watching the TV show and I was aware of it, but I wonder how did it get so worldwide? I'm not.
What I think is a lot of the European countries, they don't have the freedom to travel like we do in the United States, and their borders are much harder to get across. So I think they love to travel to get on the open road and
Yeah, and go a long
drive,
way and just forget
drive
about
as
it.
long
huh?
as they can.
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
yes.
Well, it is kind of an American thing, and if you want to experience America, that's one way to do it, is just get on the old highway and just keep going, right? And then, of course, you get these interesting stops. But you're kind of new to the tourism business in Lincoln and Logan County.
Yes.
But you are very aware of Route 66 and what it does for the area, aren't you?
Oh, yes. It brings travelers from all over.
And you remember, you're old enough to remember the mill.
Yes, I am.
And the food. What was your favorite meal?
The schnitzels. The schnitzels were the best. Yes.
It seems to be the consensus.
Yes, the schnitzels were bigger than your head. You could have 2 buns and still have some left over. They were very generous.
Well, now the mill is now a museum, and it's recently opened. This will be its first full summer.
Yes.
What do you expect it to do for the economy?
Like I said, it's already brought several people, lots of people in, from out of the country, let alone all the travelers coming through. I'd say about 75% of the travelers that come through our office are here to travel Route 66 and to see the artwork, the heritage, all of the nostalgia of the road.
Yep, yep. And this will be one of their stops for sure, won't it?
Oh, for sure, for sure.
Thanks. We mentioned the artist Bob Waldmeyer, the Route 66 icon who did this artwork before he passed away. This is what the mill looked like before it reopened as a museum. And this item and many others are available here in the gift shop. And the gift shop partially funds this Route 66 Mill Museum along with your donations. The museum will be open through October on Tuesday through Saturday in the afternoons. With another Illinois story in Lincoln, I'm Mark McDonald. Thanks for watching.
Illinois Stories is brought to you by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting and by the support of viewers like you. Thank you. For a DVD copy of the program you've just seen, send $19.95 to Network Knowledge, P.O. Box 6248, Springfield, Illinois 62708. Be sure to include the program name, subject, and when the program aired. You can also order with your credit card by calling 800-232-3605.